start recording again and start sharing my screen. Okay, so now we have like a reflective template as being the PMO. Yeah, so we were driving this through the project management office, but we have kind of considered what we have to go through. Now we have to kind of make a little bit sense of the knowledge management literature and have a look what they are actually recommending for creating and seeing where we landed, yeah, with our kind of setup. Are we already talking knowledge management, or are we still in a parallel theorem where we don't yet see this kind of focus element of the discipline? Okay, so those were the questions. So we have actually a script, and we know that those are good questions for setting up your PMO and a knowledge-based strategy. Now, what is knowledge creation about? And I'm jumping. Hey, this is again my Mac mouse. But yeah, anyway. So what is it about? Knowledge creation. By the way, depending on the knowledge management process, you really need to have a look at what the different characteristics or process elements actually mean, because they are probably not doing themselves a favor by interchanging the terminology. And I give you a quick example here. So when we come to knowledge creation as creating knowledge, that was literally the example that Lynn identified with her group. So looking here at your team in the project, when you're setting up your project, you may have knowledge that is super specific to your project, where you just have to find it out. Yeah, you have to create the knowledge, and that is typical ones are how many projects are we actually running this year to change. Yeah, and that would be specific to your company. You probably know roughly how to categorize what is a change project and what isn't, but then it's just a question of investigating that, and that is maybe implicit to your context. Yeah, so that is to say, it's not invisible, it can't be codified, it can be codified and measured. Yeah, but it's something we have to find out. Now, knowledge creation is as well, to jump back to another example. Somebody built, as we know, the first vehicle that could bring people to the moon, yeah, or that could go into space. Now the question here is, was it really created from scratch? So simplified, I would just say it wasn't. It was actually leaning on our previous discoveries, yeah, and knowledge insights, and then constructed new to a context. Yeah, but to answer another question, was that knowledge there how to travel into space? Then the answer would be no. So that knowledge was created new. Yeah, but you see already the dilemma. So there's a past, yeah, where we come from. So this is kind of the looking back. Has somebody been there before? Yeah, do we have insights codified that could help us? That is looking back at history and finding kind of facts, data, and information, yeah, that can support our endeavor. And then there's kind of the present, yeah, where what do we actually have? What can we do? Do we have to experiment? Do we have to set it up to probe what we can do, what works? Yeah, so that is kind of future oriented. And this is typically the element of setting your organization up for learning and trying things out. Yeah, so this is exploring, experimenting, or piloting, testing. Yeah, so that is normally the framework that comes with it. Then we have as well a second dimension for knowledge creation that is traditionally identified as identification. Yeah, so what is the knowledge that is actually relevant here? And that is kind of often done with assessment or evaluation, yeah, where you try to see what is actually needed. Do we have in our networks people that can do this already? Or do we have past artifacts, yeah, objects that show us how to do it? Yeah? So particularly in engineering, this may be previous drawings or kind of systemized cut drawings that can be kind of plugged in. Yeah, so things like that. Identification itself can be an activity. Yeah, so you may know one person that, again, has a super network in that area. So they may be not able to answer you, but can link you to other people. So you remember that maybe from the Volvo example, that would be as well part of knowledge identification as part of the knowledge creation process. And the last one, acquisition. And be careful. This was actually why I said read very careful what they mean by the process step. So to preempt it, in the US in particular, acquisition is used as an individual unit too. So as an individual, you may acquire skills or knowledge, and that is normally in the context of education or training. Now that is very specific, and if you try to use this in the UK or here in Australia, it's kind of a mixed bag. So depending on your company context, if they work a lot with the US, you may get away with this. But in this context, this means buying. That doesn't mean you learn. Yeah, so acquisition normally means you're looking for an expert or a skilled person or specialist that you bring in. But in the knowledge management literature, this is referred to as the expert. Yeah. Okay, so that is kind of a few definitions that we need. And I have here as well kind of a small reflection, just but very quick. Maybe we use this as a discussion item. So reflect on your university education so far. What main knowledge creation sources do you think you, oh, I'm jumping again. Why is this? Well, which are the main knowledge creation sources do you think you have leveraged or used? Yeah. Consider if this has been different for your undergrad and postgraduate study. Okay, let's think about this for a moment. So we are trying to make sense of those three concepts as part of knowledge creation. Yeah, and here the question is, how have those played actually into your university education? Which one are more dominant, or which ones do you recognize? And then second was like undergraduate versus postgraduate, but we can answer that afterwards. Okay, anybody, any ideas? What knowledge creation sources have we actually used? I take guesses if you prefer. Okay, that would be quite scary if you're telling me there was no knowledge creation, then something has gone terribly wrong.
I would say the lecture and the tutorial we have.
Yeah, where would you see this? Is this creation, identification, or acquisition?
I think creations or identifications. Not sure.
Yeah, so it depends a little bit, but so what were you thinking of when you were saying creation? So both you're right, Jody. I think both could be part of a lecture or seminar.
Mm.
But what did you think of there?
Because we will do some research and at the same time, like Robert, you were teaching us some new knowledge. So I think during this process, it will be knowledge creations among the discussions between each other and yeah, etc.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
would think.
researching would be identify. Yeah, Lynn, go on. Yeah.
No, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead, Lynn.
I was just thinking if we talk about learning from the lecturers or others, that would be acquisition rather than identification. So, for example, learning from you would be acquisition, I guess. We acquire the knowledge from, you share the knowledge and we kind of absorb the knowledge. So that would be, it's not.
Yeah, Lynn, what you're implying there is that you're working on a project and you use me as a lecturer in reality as a consultant. Is that what you mean? So it could be, Lynn, yeah. So you're spot on, yeah. So for example, you're asking me here, yeah, spot on, yeah. So you're working on a project maybe, and you're saying now, okay, Robert, we have here this contract remit. Our team has to learn what is the best way of knowledge creation, yeah. And if I answer this then as a lecturer, so I myself would probably do identification, but then ultimately be your acquisition. Yeah, because I would come in to kind of speak from expertise of having studied so many projects before and having seen, yeah, how knowledge management goes wrong in a lot of cases. Yeah, so that I could say like, okay, don't try this, maybe consider those. Yeah, and then you're right. Then it's knowledge acquisition. Is that what you meant though? Or
Yeah.
okay. So, but well, okay, I feel sorry, Lynn. I think I cut your stream, but so where do you see this sit in a lecture or education?
Sorry, what
Or
was?
drop the lecture. So where do you see the knowledge creation with acquisition in education, or do you think it's all three?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so to turn the question around, is knowledge creation acquisition a standard format for undergraduate and postgraduate studies?
I think in students' perspective, it's only we are only gaining knowledge, so only acquisition is there. I feel like creation and identification is not in student scope of it. Like
I would think when you reflect, though, you would create knowledge. Like you acquire knowledge and then you explore what it means to you. That will be when you create knowledge for yourself.
Yeah.
Because, for example, Achu's background is different. My background is different. So the same concept would mean different things to different people.
Yes. Very good. Yes. Yeah. So spot on. So we had two, actually, largely in education. We do actually train you on knowledge identification. Yeah, but by applying it to case scenarios and learning from multiple different contexts. So, for example, super example in Archu had a different practical experience, but we can talk about how they created knowledge. And by now comparing your experience, by sharing as well with a group, we have actually new ways of how knowledge was created by identifying it in the past and then contextualizing it new into a context. And that is really knowledge creation. Yeah. So this is, oh, sorry, we have just very strong rain here. I hope it's not too noisy for you. So that was a good example. But by the way, I don't know if, so can I just check? Oh, okay, it's here. Is knowledge acquisition for you acquiring it as an individual, or is it acquiring at an organization level? So does it make sense to you personally? I have acquired skills.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so my point here is, this is a terminology of transaction buying. So this is this doesn't translate to British English, and this is where you have to help me. So in British English, we wouldn't say that, we would say skills development. I'll show you, maybe I jump a little bit in the slide deck quickly to show you what I actually mean. Sorry, this is very bad practice as usual, but I have it here. So if you look, for example, at the knowledge value chain, when we start a project, we would normally talk about knowledge development or skills development, yeah, which refers to the individual at the organization level. And that is determine knowledge needs. So that is maybe an evaluation or assessment, or you recruit on that basis, yeah. But then you have as well determine available knowledge, or you have to acquire it, and then acquisition refers to buying in. So that is normally bringing in the expert or the academic or the consultant, yeah, you name it. So that is normally how, and I have to admit, so I have biases towards this, but as long as we agree that we understand what we are talking about, I'm happy as well to talk about knowledge acquisition by the individual.
So you're saying here that in this context, knowledge acquisition only takes place at the organizational level?
So if you read the journal papers, then skills acquisition is only used by economics at population level. So that is normally national. And there it makes sense again, because they're looking then at the national organization, how people have acquired skills. But the knowledge acquisition or skills acquisition normally refers to buying into the organization external sources of knowledge or expertise.
Mm.
And Achu and Lynn, I think you used the acquisition different. Am I right in assuming this, or am I completely off plot now?
Yeah, I'm not too sure if
So
we talk about the academic context. If we learn from you, that's not acquisition, but that's still creation.
Yeah. So no, my point is, when we talk about knowledge creation, here we are talking in a team, in a project, right? So then knowledge acquisition means we are buying in an expert. Or Lynn, the example that you gave, you're working on a project with your team, and you are bringing me in by consulting me for your project, yeah, how you would do this. Then I'm as well an kind of acquisition of knowledge for your project that you then maybe apply with your team. Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay, I feel we haven't yet got our finger on the pulse. So I think we do maybe, so can I have one more example of maybe creation, identification, and acquisition of knowledge creation in our university context or your university education context? Oh, I have chats. Hi. Can you flex that? Library, yeah, very good. Well, what is library?
So I actually meant by library, like for assignments or something, like if you're working on something and if we need some sources, or maybe in general also, if you just want to maybe have a look at some article or some journal, then I think that could also be one of the sources.
Yeah. So library is typically where we identify, right? Identification of knowledge. And you're right, when you write an assignment, that is knowledge creation. Yeah. And again, professors could be knowledge identification too. Yes. we may just come along with a bigger library or with explaining how to approach the library. And so actually, if you're very strict with the definitions, you shouldn't make anything more out of professors than a good guide to the library. Okay, I shouldn't say that out too loud. Yeah. Okay, I think we got it. Now, is there a difference between undergraduate and postgraduate? That was kind of the follow-up questions. Is it the same? Do we do a lot of acquisition in undergraduate? I think it's a preferred strategy, right? I noticed this with my undergraduate final year project. So if they work in the Makers Lab, which is opposite my office space, I often have them standing a lot in front of my office and say, hey, how are we doing this? And I said, like, no, you have to read this paper. And then they get really annoyed, and then they come back 3 times more, and then I'm normally in the Makers Lab and help them. So this is not, so they certainly prefer the acquisition method, as Lynn said. Yeah, but is it the same?
Maybe they are a little bit different. As for postgrad, in terms of acquisition, you have more critical thinking by applying your experience through your job as you go, because I think undergraduate, it's, how to say, probably,
So Jeff, you're on the right track there. Yeah.
For those who are taking postgrad, probably they have more personal or work experience and how they can apply this experience into their studies, whereas undergraduate is more a little bit before that. Whereas they're mainly supported by papers or articles or research papers.
Yeah, we have probably both. So, but Jeff, you're on the right track there. So undergraduate is actually about learning the identification strategy, if you want to knowledge, and at postgraduate level, and this is even reflected in the National Skills Framework. So the Australian AQF, Australian Qualification Framework, super, Lynn, it's standardized. I encourage you, download once the skills standard, maybe for project management. You will see it's like a bullet point list that you have to establish, that you are in charge. Then you are kind of there to coordinate and communicate with your team. And other skills, so for example, if you have a bricklayer, they have that as well in their skills standard. When they come to site, they have to kind of figure out who is in charge, to report to them, kind of identify their task. Yeah, so this as a system, this is how it's kind of set up. Yeah, but once you come to postgraduate, this is where you kind of create knowledge. The expectation is that you can already identify the right knowledge, and now it's about providing kind of tailored support structure or design or create your own knowledge suitable to your context.
Yeah, because I think undergraduate is more towards theory-wise, whereas postgrad where you can how personal they can apply the concepts by putting or tailor it based on their own experiences.
Yeah, good. So now you have kind of merged that too. So undergraduate is, I guess, more applying, and then postgraduate is more about conceptual refinement and kind of creating your own concepts that fit your context. Yeah, but yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay, other observations, postgraduate, undergraduate? I guess it depends as well a little bit. Yeah, so we had here the kind of traditional classroom or lecture versus seminar, where we have as well kind of workshops and practices. Yeah, so I mentioned that a maker space in Faculty of Engineering. This is where we have student societies that do the Student Formula One or our rocket launch. So we have as well rocket society with our students, and at the moment we have in the maker space kind of how to brew your own drinks and beverages. Yeah, so there are different kind of practice example, and in those cases you may go as well into creation and acquisition of knowledge. Yeah, so so for example, with a brewery, this is funded by industry. They bring as well experts in to kind of set and fine tune maybe machine setups. So this is then as well in that space. Yeah. Okay, so very good. That was just the knowledge creation. So now we have to come back to our tacit explicit knowledge notion. And just to warn you, this is again slightly the definitions where I'm slightly dissatisfied, but I have kind of kept it because it's our project management currency. So it's a tacit versus explicit knowledge. And here you have, of course, tacit knowledge may form the basis of explicit knowledge. So this is again a little bit what we discussed as well in the invite to travel to Germany. So you want the guide or the local. So there's already an implicit notion that you recognize that actually drives as well towards maybe a knower, yeah, somebody that can talk you through it. Now, when it comes into the specific distillation of knowledge, both tacit and explicit knowledge is, of course, required to resolve an applied problem in context. So coming back to the knowledge identification, yeah, or I think Rashi pointed this out, that she would prefer to have the guide and the local, yeah, so that is, of course, the best, yeah, and that is what we should strive for in a project. So, and that kind of leads into the next one. So therefore, explicit and tacit knowing is not separable, but rather interrelates. And this is as well the problem, right? So even if we are writing a good guide, yeah, often it's not quite transparent to ourselves what the tacit assumptions are or implications that we may lose out once we codify it. So when it comes to knowledge creation, accelerated, when there's a continual cycle from one form of knowledge conversion to another, from tacit to explicit and from explicit to tacit, this is actually normally our normal state. Now, with this, I jumped this a little bit quicker because I think you had that already to a degree with the model next. So just to show you, this is probably where you have thought about tacit and explicit already. So we will have it in a second. So just recognize this is always at interplay. So this is as well why it's so important, or this is why we always, as academics, ask you to write an essay, yeah, with identified knowledge sources that are explicit, to relate it actually to your understanding, to kind of test it in your mind by making sense with it, with your implicit understanding as well. Yeah. So there was as well the acquiring project knowledge, and this has of many reasons. So built on existing tacit knowledge by identifying and conceptualizing explicit information, that can be one. Yeah, so the typical, actually Archu gave us a good example. Yeah, so if you have to do for the first time kind of a work breakdown or a cost breakdown to kind of arrive at a budget estimate, yeah, for tendering or something like that, then you may actually want to have a look at the actual documents. Yeah? So the information that were used to do this. So you understand the format, how they've kind of packaged things, and how as well the pricing was done. Is it actually used from previous projects, or do they go into lists, or is that, you know, is there something else at play? So that can be one. One element as well. So that isn't necessarily directly to do with acquiring project knowledge, but it's to do a lot with the ease and transparency of knowledge. And this is a little bit, it's not a sinister reason, but it's wanting to avoid that it's easy to learn from your project. And that is the negative element. So that is the knowledge leakage. That is your project team has now figured out to do something very wonderful, yeah, and deliver the project. And now they decide like, hey, I've seen in the cost structure, this is very profitable and I only get so much money. I can do the same and start my own company. And that is the fear of any kind of investor or I guess product owner or company. Yeah. So the problem of knowledge leakage. Yeah. And here the recommendation is you maintain a link to the knowers. So this is the individuals within the organization who are adept at making use of complex knowledge. Does anybody know how we can do this? How can we do this in a project? So how do we avoid that somebody just leaves the company, goes to the competitor and advertises, hey, I'm the new knower for you. Yeah, I can help you with setting this up the proper way. What can we do? No one? What was that too quick? Did that not make sense? I take guesses. Oh, I'm jumping again. Okay, why do we want to avoid or minimize knowledge leakage, and how would we do that? Okay, let's start up front. So what is knowledge leakage then, by that definition?
I just guessed. So would it be, for example, like some patent technology innovations that leakage to other organizations, individual?
Yes, well, so it's just an observation that you have knowledge created in one company and one context,
yeah,
kind of leaving this organization. So
yeah,
it leaks out. And it's maybe used by another company. And Jody, you already identified here exactly how we prevent it. We make a patent. Yeah, so we write it down and say this is ours.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Did you have an example in mind as well?
Example of knowledge leakage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what we have discussed in our group as well, the breakout room. We're saying that although like Apple, they have innovations on the touch screen at first, but then maybe they have got their patent, but then once the product is launched, for example, Samsung, they will try to adopt most of the technology from the Apple's innovations and to make a copy versions at Samsung touch screen, something like that. Yeah.
And is this an example that is live or that came out, or?
No, we're just discussing and we're just guessing. Like the Apple may got the patent on the touch screen, and then Samsung may try to maybe change a little bit on their design, and then to apply for another patent for themselves.
Yeah. Actually, I have to admit I don't have enough insight into the mobile industry. But just thinking about it, I think it's super specialized, right? I've been when I was in Hong Kong, I traveled to the neighbor city where a lot of the screens are actually manufactured. I was amazed. There was like a supermarket of different touch screens. So so for an engineer, this was kind of like, wow, this is like you can build your own mobile. And there were better screens, better cameras that would easily outmatch the current Sun,
Or is it?
Galaxy or Samsung.
Even I'm from Hong Kong, I didn't realize that they got a place like that.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Give it a go. So it's just a neighbor city.
I think last time there was a huge case on Samsung is being sued by Apple because they're trying to mimic their innovation and features, such as the touchscreen or how the way it should design or put into the phone.
I'm not surprised. And the reason why it's so easy to copy the patents is, so for example, for G5 and G4, G3, those are clusters, programs of patents. So it's all standardized. So your products have to basically fit in as a subsystems in the overall system. So they kind of manage this as interface. And Judy was a good example. So the touch screen is actually a hard problem. There are a few companies that work on that. And there are some that sit specifically with a patent owned by Apple, for example, in the supply chain. And then those companies, of course, compete again with other companies to kind of provide a similar service or patent to Samsung. And then often the question is like, hey, wait a minute, you're a similar company. This patent looks very similar to this patent. So, and they fulfill a similar role. But Jody, it's literally in front of your door. So the product market or subsystem market comes literally out of this corner, and it's basically the main manufacturers sit there. So it's an interesting example. But yeah. So knowledge leakage, particularly for competitive industries or projects where you are in a very competitive environment, is normally a core driver. And how you can do that is you break it down the organization so that the different teams and organizations don't see what the other teams do. It's very old school way of dividing. More modern is patenting and trying to manage this by innovating quicker. Yeah. So, but again, then you are in the more high tech segment. So it's another way of doing this. But yeah. So as a concept, knowledge leakage is one main concern to companies. But I have to quote here Iron Man. It's particularly uncool for a knowledge company that prides itself with innovation, trying to prevent knowledge being shared. Yeah, so I think, is it Iron Man? I don't know. At some point, he kind of says like, how come a knowledge company is priding itself with hiding knowledge? Yeah, so it's a big question. Yeah. Yeah. Other kind of observations or kind of points? Knowledge leakage. So an important element from an organization point is you need either, so okay, the oldest one is kind of the enemy, yeah, where you don't want to share your knowledge. Then, although not, I wouldn't recommend him as a general literature source, but Carl Schmitt, kind of one of the very famous political scientists in the US, a former German philosopher, actually questionable applications, but he kind of pointed out that you need for concepts like knowledge leakage a competition element. So you have to have against something. Yeah. So if you are in a if you kind of compete with a product based on knowledge, then knowledge leakage is a very important concept for your projects and drives as well a lot of the knowledge process elements or tools and techniques for knowledge sharing. So it can be another level of complexity that comes into your project if you are competing in an environment like that. As it's very likely. Yeah. Now, on that notion, how good are industries with knowledge leakage? Again, the construction example, I think, is one that we discussed in OPM 5000. So normally knowledge leaks there a lot because it's all subcontractors, and the subcontractors are not disciplined enough to not push innovations if they are beneficial for them. So that means that the industry regionally normally adopts with innovation really at a nearly industry level rather than discrete product level. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I add here one last point as well. So knowledge is combined and reformed in a process of learning and knowing. So this is maybe important to understand. So we are stepping here into the theorems as well at the individual level and even organizational level of skills, understanding, learning, and knowing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, when it comes to the conversion of knowledge, so this is now pulling it forward. How can we create that knowledge that is relevant to our project? So this is often referred to as converted in an evolving and dynamic environment, and this is certainly what projects are. From what the information you gave me, you have covered this model already extensively, right? That is Nonaka. I think you actually just focused initially on the CC process, right? So that is the socialization, externalization, combination, and internalization. Now, is it more recent? In a follow-up paper, kind of from their CC process, they kind of identified as well the space, and I love that they have left it in a little bit Japanese. Yeah, the space of the space where knowledge is shared, and this doesn't. It means as well the physical space. Yeah, so this can be a room, but it's actually referred to as a mental space. Yeah, so you allow a room. And in German, we would say this is idealism. Yeah, so you kind of create a construct, a social construct in your mind, where you can actually start discussing the right knowledge. Yeah, so and that is yeah, here just to read it out. So a space where knowledge sharing, creation, utilization is happening. Yeah. And then this is kind of linked to the knowledge asset. So that is a moderation of inputs and outputs to the knowledge creation process defined as experiential, conceptual, systematic, and routines. Yeah. So this allows you then maybe in form of a plan or you have figured out a model of how you want to develop now your project, and you can base it on the knowledge of your team members, and you have the right conversation to kind of drive the project. That would be kind of the concept, and they visualized this. Oh, well, so this was just a reminder of the CC process, but that was kind of their model from the paper. Yeah, and here important is, oh, why am I jumping again? Here the important element is you start kind of with a maybe knowledge vision. So if it's a question of actually coming to synchronization, so you have already the right people in the project that have the know-how. Now it's just a question of applying it to maybe your project. Yeah, then you kind of build and energize the bar, the space, to have the right conversations, to build the maybe support knowledge objects, so or artifacts that kind of help you, or you may notice that you have to read up somewhere, and that then drives the CC process. Here, this you probably know this. So there is, of course, first the element of seeing if you actually have the right codified knowledge. So do we have already plans, examples? Then talking to the people that you have on the team. Okay, how was it used? How could this work, right? And here an important element as well is leading this. Now, here, by the way, if you read the paper, you will see here, leadership is not necessarily the project manager, but it's kind of the people that have the knowledge to kind of drive a little bit as well questions, and in the dialogue to kind of come to a level where your team members understand that as well. So this is as well kind of recognizing the socializing, so that you need that feedback to see if they actually understand, and that is kind of a follow-up topic that we step next into. So how do you build the right relationship to actually arrive at that? And that is where you as well kind of actually produce then the knowledge asset. You can do that as well, develop and redefine the knowledge asset. That's a question as well of the vision. So this is iterative, but they didn't really draw it that way. So that is more or less the original model kind of copied out of the paper. Yeah. Okay, this is quite heavy, and I didn't really want to spend too much emphasis on this, because I have now later in the slide deck in how we actually build the relationship to the team members to arrive at the right kind of CC, if you want, and how we can lead this. But are there? But by the way, did you all have that model already, or did you focus more on this model? Are you still there? Hello?
Yeah. So in my experience, we talked about Seiki with grew in 4000, but we also had a reflection assignment on this paper. So I did talk about bar and some other.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how about the others, because we had the option to do it as an essay or like a video or podcast.
Okay, so you all had that. Did anybody read the follow-up? What is the counterpart to bar? Does anybody? Is that not this? Did you not discuss it? So the discipline in bar, in the space of talking about it?
I don't think we dived deep into bar, or but we only it was rather than having the discussion in class, in-depth discussion, it was just personal reflection and
But did you do with projects as social systems, or in that space as well, the lateral thinking, the colored head exercise?
I don't think so.
Okay, maybe we can. Okay, I plan that in. Oh, this will be a push for tomorrow. But so the bar. Can anybody help me? What is the bar space relying on? What is an essential to actually build and energize a bar? Does anybody remember? Yeah.
From what I can remember, it's the role of the facilitator.
Yeah.
So our example, in my example, it was how we as the team kind of had the lecturer to facilitate knowledge sharing and knowledge transfer in the classroom environment. So we have that, classroom, as you mentioned, the physical space, but also, the discussion the discussion that we have is also the environment that we, like the bar that we have. Yeah, and the facilitator would energize bar by providing the direction to the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Lynn. Very good. And and by the way, this is I'm not good with Japanese, but the link here, particular if you are looking at the project management guide in Japan, they go in with bar, and then they have po, yeah, I think so, which is the discipline. And this is the lateral thinking exercise. We may give that a go tomorrow, so you can experience this. This is, you put a thinking hat on, and you, for example, just stick to your subject discipline. Or actually, we will probably do it by just idealized solutions. So we just think about solutions. Then next round, we just think about risks. Then next round, and with doing this exercise, you kind of comes to a stratified options and criteria for your knowledge assets that they need to actually deliver. And it's a super exercise. It gives you really perspectives as well from other players. So we may, if I can't do it tomorrow, then we try to maybe do it on day 4. Yeah, because this is important for project managers to really see the change of perspective, how powerful this is.
Robert, is that are you talking about the thinking hat?
Yes, thinking hats. Oh yeah, you have done it?
Oh no, I heard about the concepts, but I just know by chance from other people.
Have you done it before?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Worthwhile. It's good fun. And I think because we're not in the same room, less heated, so you can't physically inhabit people. So this is probably better. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, but so this is still one of the leading approaches in this space. Now, by the way, word of warning, as the Belbin profiles, this is something that has shown empirically to be a little bit hollow, so there are issues with this. But for our kind of conception for projects, actually, yeah, as for projects, Belbin is actually not bad. So they hold up temporarily, but if you run them consistently, you will see the roles are actually, or here in this case as well, the elements are actually only partially the driving element behind it. And Kate will talk against it tomorrow. Yeah, so this is my guest from Columbia University. She will actually have a look at this model and explain a little bit the additional elements that we already know are missing here. Yeah, so and this is important to realize. You have to check this out. So they are heavily driven by cultural setup, what are norms as well, and how problems are solved. So in some setups, companies, this is kind of already replaced. So what Archu mentioned in manufacturing, yeah, where everybody kind of stops on the assembly line to investigate what the problem is. That is where you learn very quickly, right, what the different elements are. So here you come to completely different insights, and your bar may be driven by even people that have questions for their task and how that relates to later tasks, right? So that is a different construct then. Okay. So that was quite heavy, and I thought I'd just top it up with other heavy elements. So when it comes to our knowledge creation in projects, we had the kind of the creation, right, identification and acquisition. So when we step into this, there is often technology. And this is maybe important to know. So in day 4, I will talk to you about knowledge-based systems and give you a basic insight how they're normally designed, what the drivers are, what the underpinning knowledge is. And this is interesting, particularly if you go now, actually nowadays it's interesting probably for all industries, but it gives you a little bit an idea in what we are relying in when we are as well talking about big data and things like that. So here you are really coming into sophisticated modeling and accuracy of data and information. And there we have to at least have like a basic overview. But in the project management literature, this is actually relatively absent. So you have to first decide for discipline. So in project management on construction, for example, yes, there is now a growing literature. Or as well, if you go into banking or kind of finance, yes, there's suddenly a lot. But if it comes to the project management itself, in the International Journal of Project Management Journal, you will see there's still a reluctance in that space. So technology normally focuses here on collaboration and networking. Yeah, so that is quite important. So so there is actually very little call for knowledge management based technology or knowledge-based systems, as I will introduce them. So more around softwares for communication and coordination. Yeah, and just to well, let's discuss it quickly. Does anybody have a good example for communication technology? What does that normally do for us, and what is a typical project management technology that we can use?
Like the Zoom meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, so you're quite right. So Zoom maybe as a meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have now a conference. So let me jump back into my old language. Yeah? if you want to find literature about this, yeah, that there was the old conference call. Yeah, you will see 1990s they talked about that in the literature, but nowadays it's a Zoom. Yeah, and it's communicating in a project, and it's normally related to whole integrated solutions around project management. So it's as well for file sharing, for chatting, yeah, or emailing, and yeah, so kind of conference call, be it Zoom or maybe Microsoft Teams, yeah, the Microsoft Teams call function. And they hold often a combination with other elements so that it links to kind of scheduling or task allocation tools. Yeah? And that calendar functions maybe as well, right?
Yeah.
Which one have you used largely in that space, Hansen?
Probably the email or Google Drive.
Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, so kind of slightly Google Suite oriented, I guess. And I guess this is what we're describing from Monash, right? So in a way, this is our default system. And do you do task allocation as well? Do you use a calendar function and email function, or is it just kind of like formal system email and then kind of talk like, okay, you do this, or do you codify it?
Sometimes I will use calendar functions to allocate the meetings time.
Yep. So kind of to block time, yeah, and schedule a meeting. Yeah, yeah, very good.
I think another example could also be like on Moodle for a couple of units or something. They have this thing, this what do you call it, the board, or where you can share your words of encouragement, or you can maybe discuss some issues, like if you have any questions or something, you can put it across to the professor, and then so yeah, I think that could be one of them. So it's like if I have a question and maybe if another student has a similar one, or if they might have not thought of it from that aspect, even they can get a clarity on that.
Yeah, so by the way, you had the two competing concepts, but you're spot on. Yeah, so maybe a forum or a group set up as a chat forum or something like that, right? But mimicking or kind of pretending to be the community of practice where you can go
Yeah, forum.
find your answers. Yeah, so a very good example. Yeah, and here it depends on the community how it's run. Yeah, so is your teacher just using this to convey here is the answer? Please don't discuss. Yeah, so often with a hidden discussion option, or is it used for students to kind of post their questions, you know, and kind of make suggestions, and it's more dynamic. Yeah, so that is a good example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anybody else used any other project softwares for collaboration?
In my volunteer organization, we use a combination of Asana and Slack. And they're all linked. And sometimes it's scary because you had the notification on Asana and then Slack and then email. So I want to make sure that you don't forget the task. Yeah. So how you kind of use different platforms, or we use different platforms to communicate the task and track deadlines, things like that.
Okay, but you said here something else, and this is something we haven't discussed yet. That is quite a good subtheme. So you said you get it on your desktop and then on your mobile.
Yeah. And
okay, now that is not just a communication technology in its initial information conveying sense. That is as well alerting and prompting you, right? So in where you are, yeah.
Yeah.
And how does that work?
Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming.
Okay.
Because we have different platforms and they're all interconnected. So you would get a message on Slack about a task on Asana that you haven't completed, and then you get an email reminder as well. So but if you can manage that, it's good in a way if we can manage effectively.
Yeah. So this is an engineer's dream to actually prompt you to even do the right response. Yeah. So it's not just giving you the information like, hey, by the way, you have to do this task. It's this way alerting you. You should have been doing this task right now. Have you started yet? Yeah. So and then the follow up. Are you doing the task at the moment? And then have you completed the task successfully? Yeah. So that is the total. That then you can actually automate it. Yeah, that this is cyber physical system effectively, where you have total control. But then you pointed already the right thing out. It's a tad overwhelming. Yeah, and I assume your system isn't even that intense like what I described. Yeah, so you have to find as well, I guess, an etiquette or a healthy way of running this with your team.
Yeah, and sometimes I just ignore the reminders because I know I have to do it, but I'll do it later, not now. So
important insight here. So this is a tacit knowledge that you want to listen to and the stories as well, with your team. So it's worse as academics. What do you think we do with all these projects running? I shouldn't admit to this. This is maybe just me, and this may come back on me. I'm filming this, but what do people do potentially if it's too many reminders?
so ignore all the reminders.
Yeah, so ignoring, or worse, they go into settings and switch all off. Yeah, and then it's worse than even the important stuff. So it's not reminded then. And that is problematic, right? So we have to kind of think about how we actually remind our team members that we don't fatigue them. Yeah, but you're right. So this is built into the systems, and this can be a little bit problematic. Yeah, and what is another issue? You have named the two softwares already. Are they synced? Like if you do the task, is it automatically ticked in the other one?
Yeah. Oh, no,
okay,
not really synced. It's just synced in the way that you get the reminder from one platform to another platform. But once you completed the task, it only shows on Asana and not on Slack or in email.
Yes. Very good. Yeah. Yes. So this is the standard. You have to then update as well all the softwares that you have actually been doing this.
Yeah.
So if you like softwares, if they're done nice, like at Atlassian, you get a smiley, and they tell you like, hey, now it's time for a coffee break. Update quickly your so something like that. Yeah, then it's at least designed nice. Yeah, but not all softwares are that way.
And also it's the culture, the online culture, that it's really, I guess it's the lack of motivation, because once you completed a task, you get like a thumbs up or like a heart icon, and you don't really know what the other person thought about your performance, or it's just like very standard, everyone can throw a heart, everyone can do the thumbs up, but not really sure what they think.
Yes. Yeah. So the feedback function is so, but yeah, so that is again, I guess, the point. So maybe we need actually the feedback on the task to have as well a continuous improvement, or actually improve the project-centric element. But maybe in the setups, this is not clear for the other participants. So our systems kind of put as well in place an organization that may or may not suit us. So Lynn, by what you're describing, your natural intent for continuous improvement, getting feedback, is actually slightly disabled by the platform, right? Which is counterproductive.
So we would need to use an extra platform, for example, email or WhatsApp, or like a messaging platform, to talk about, to have the informal conversation and to provide feedback.
Yeah, is that what you're doing, or?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So then again, if you talk to my system engineers, they would say like, the system isn't designed properly. Yeah, so they would be just frustrated that you have to now compensate with multiple softwares. One thing that a better system should be able to do. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. We have to then, from a project point, still facilitate that we have the right mechanisms to allow, for example, for the learning. Yeah, so particular if your project is set up as a learning organization, this is an essential item. Yeah, but when it's contracting, then okay, fair enough. You get notified a lot and alerted that you have to do your task. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that is technology to a degree. There's a lot more to it. I have as well some references, but I will dive a little bit deeper in the knowledge-based systems because it's a hot topic, and particularly with digitalization, I think you too in your career will actually see a lot of changes driven through that. Now, another element, and I've changed this a little bit from Siobhan, you probably saw that was kind of knowledge development. In most companies, you will find this as HR processes. So if you are in a company that runs project-based, you will see even there you have HR. And some of the concepts was kind of the grafting, so external sourced specialized knowledge, and we knew already. Oh, sorry, I've jumped here again. We knew already that from Elko's example, a lot of big companies kind of worked here with a fragmentation, so they kind of divide activities so that you can't actually easily understand the whole process. And that is by design in the project. That is normally where you work with specialists or external consultants or experts that you kind of bring in. By the way, this is as well a favored economic model. Yeah, so companies really like that because it means as well that they kind of reduce knowledge leakage and reduce as well potential issues if one person really decides to go on another company or something like that, right? You could really lose a major knowledge holder, and by kind of fragmenting this or dividing this into smaller parts of the roles, you kind of redistribute the risk as well a little bit along that. Yeah, by the way, this works best if you have a planned approach. This was the important part. So subject matter experts, you kind of need a clear element. And here the second point is important. So if your project is being managed using a learning methodology, or you're trying to figure something out, yeah, if your project's purpose is to develop something new, then well, the literature they called it on the fly, so I put it. But then you basically need a project mechanism where you kind of facilitate exactly for what Lynn mentions, that you kind of get feedback, you have socializing and formative elements in your project where you kind of revisit what you have done so far, and you decide if you maybe want to even entertain a few options, you know, in terms of what you're developing, to see which one is stronger, right? So this is again a way of doing this. Oh, my mouse is really not good. Wait, let's go the other way. Now we have as well, and this is very important in project management, this is one of the strongest mechanisms. It's informal systems. So this is, looking at processes that kind of facilitate or help you in creating knowledge. And this can be kind of facilitated through processes like design thinking is here one of the examples that are kind of dotted down, but it's as well kind of the elements of brainstorming, of engaging in creative processes that can facilitate that. So I guess other concepts here in that space were kind of industry innovation, but innovation is normally on the level where you are at the organization level already, where you can partially adopt something that is there. Yeah, so models or again, consultants give you an insight. Now there are as well other processes, I think, from entrepreneurship around ideation, and effectuation is another one if you want to read into this. But the idea here is you kind of engage in the process of creating knowledge. Now this is normally here the emphasis on informal systems is that you are stepping here into support mechanisms that you bring into the project, either yourself as a project manager or through the organization, or you can do this as well in, for example, knowledge networks, be it professional networks, kind of networking there, figuring out how other companies have done that. Be a little bit careful there. So external with the professional networks. In the literature, this is often criticized and being superficial, but as a networking function, quite useful. Whereas in the organization, this is normally quite company focused. So this is normally a stronger element. Of course, you have as well knowledge networks outside of professional associations, which may come into play. So this can be as well very powerful. Now, formal in-company solutions here are breakout areas, and this is what we are as well replicating at the moment. So for example, we have now a new smart manufacturing hub. So literally where my office is in Clayton, this becomes as well an ideation and entrepreneur and project hub. That is being built physically at the moment. And this is often to kind of mingle and share ideas. So if you look in the knowledge management literature, this is normally discussed as knowledge management fairs or knowledge fairs, communities of practice or knowledge networks. But if you are looking at what that actually means, this can be conferences, congresses, or professional associations, you know, that advertise something. Or as well in the commercial space, it's maybe Atlassian running their congress or their agile work fair or something like that, where you can kind of ask questions and then the community tries to respond with answers. So they are actually amazing processes that have just been branded away, but they come from communities of practice. By the way, this is important as well. So this is normally where there are as well concerns with confidentiality, but maybe I just preempted. So there's a famous study in Yale University, 1996, the Department of Defense in the US said like, oh, this is all secret knowledge. We cannot disclose anything. And then a professor actually dared to bid the general that he with his students, with a literature review, will be able to come up with better strategic solutions than they will secretly do with the experts. And this is a study in 1996, the Yale professor won. Yeah, so just be aware when you think something is secret. This is normally overemphasized, so don't get me wrong. So keep in mind, yeah, so this is still a university who was probably a subject specialist in their own university. So it's kind of a bad experiment. But the point here is normally if you want to find out something, hiding knowledge is only delaying it. Normally, a lot of the knowledge that we have nowadays, although maybe counterintuitive or something like that, is normally something that can be reinvented or re-established. So we have at the moment this topic of confidentiality, cybersecurity, and knowledge leakage. But this is normally always when a market is stagnating. So for us as project management community, this is normally not too driving. Yeah, so you will see this is an agenda, but ultimately with projects, we should generate new ideas anyway. Yeah, so it's a space where you can try things out, where you want to push the envelope with innovation. It depends on your project context, but so yeah, just be aware that there is that element, and informal systems or networks are a key driver for that. Then I have as well as a big chunk external relations, which can overlap with informal systems. Actually, I've mixed it up partially. So just to be very clear, informal systems is really the informal, whilst knowledge networks may be as well external relations. So if it's ARPM for your company, that would be external. If you have a community of practice or knowledge network, yeah, of champions of a project in your company, then this is maybe something that can be informal. But if it's formalized, like, hey, every Friday we have that network, then it's actually a formalized informal system. Yeah, so just be careful a little bit with my terminology. So in my explanation, I've mixed the two with saying ARPM. Yeah. So external relations is really for companies that produce, for example, consumable products. So here the ideas for new advancement in their product regulatory comes from external sources. Is this a good example? Yeah, so I guess I was thinking here of the customer and clients and maybe investors that drives this. Okay, that was my next point. Yeah, exactly. So that may be driven by customer feedback, but it may be as well. So as well as project managers, we can drive standards. For example, through our professional organizations or with your companies. So for example, in the Building 4.0, we are actually at the moment heavily deregulating planning permissions to regulate again that they kind of work with smart contracts and can be done quicker and more flexible, so that you don't have to print out a plan, but you can upload as well a PDF or ideally an IFC format for BIM and related technologies, softwares that are used in project environments. So maybe as a general, external relations are normally seen a little bit as critical, but they are of course as well a source of professional learning, right? So you can kind of commit to your company, go for the career progression, but from a knowledge point, the external networks give normally a little bit a broader flavor and bring as well innovation in where you can learn maybe from other sectors or other projects. Not just from your company's specific projects, right? So it's a strong source for learning and knowledge as well. Well, there's a lot as well online. So another was a good example, right? So they share their cases scenarios, so you can dive into that. The other big ones are probably World Bank, PMI, and then kind of all the multinational corporates that understand that these cases are as well amazing marketing for what they're doing, right? So there's where potential famous sources for kind of concepts of knowledge and how to leverage this. Yeah. Yeah, shall I go? We cover actually a lot of the kind of knowledge repository at the days 4. So I think I'm quite happy with that for now. And any questions? Oh, yeah, before we move on, any questions to informal systems and external relations? Okay, I wanted to actually play a knowledge management tools and process bingo. So we have here items, and I wanted to tell me from the category in the former what they are. So or where they fit, and we can play the same for kind of our project creation. Are they good for project knowledge creation actually? So my first one here is the community of practice. So where would you place that? First of all, good for knowledge creation, and second of all, where is it tapping in? So is this informal? Is it technology? Is it and by the way, the answer can be many, so it depends probably what you're thinking about. So, and any examples? Community of practice?
I guess it could be either informal or formal communities of practice. Probably could start as an informal platform, but then you have kind of some structure in place to facilitate the conversation among people in the community. So that would become like a more formal, but still not really it's also about external relations as well. You would have people from different projects coming in form a community of practice to learn from each other.
Yeah. So I think it's both. Yeah. So I think a community of practice can be in the company. Yeah. So intra-organizational. Yeah. And maybe this is so this could be peer project managers. Yeah. Coming together to learn and look at their projects and how they can do this. And this could be interlinked with maybe more senior or more experienced project managers in the company to give as well related context. Yeah, that doesn't have to be. So community of practice could be as well special interest groups, even with external companies, yeah, and external people that have as well an interest in it. And Lynn, you are right. It's normally associated as an informal mechanism, but by all means, you're spot on. It's normally organized. Yeah, so somebody is kind of saying like, "Hey, let's meet." Yeah, it's it's as well normally facilitated in terms of topics. So leaders are not always the most senior or the people that kind of set it up. So normally communities of practice, everybody that has a question indirectly becomes a leader, yeah, by trying to figure it out, the dialogue. And very powerful if you are in a company environment where you have trust and learning orientation. It's more challenging if it's kind of, okay, who is next project manager? Who can prove that he or she is better than the next one? Then, so if there's a strong level of competition, this can hamper a little bit positive effects and question the feasibility. Yeah, very good. Okay, then we have another one. We have creation and utilization of knowledge database. Is that good for knowledge at the beginning of a project?
I think it's good before in the beginning and before in the beginning and after the project.
Yeah, you're spot on. So this is actually probably loaded. So we have to first again recognize what we're actually talking about, because I think you're right. You're thinking on database or knowledge database for the project. Yeah, and
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
right that is then beginning and end to feed in. Then there is, of course, the utilization of knowledge databases normally at a permanent organization, so PMO, and then feeding into the projects and ideally kept alive. But this is often super hard. So normally it's used as kind of a learning mechanism to kind of brief the project. And then if there are critical events that have been identified for the project context to be something where it needs investigation, then this is quite a common element where you want to dive into something like this. Yeah, so for example, your project, when it comes to the design, there are long lead items. Yeah, so you know that when this comes 3 months before, you have to order this, otherwise you have no chance in delivering according to time. Yeah, so then this is just something that would pop up there. Yeah. Now there's another one you could create as well, a knowledge base for your project, and that is probably more likely to happen if you're really on a very knowledge-intensive project. So, so ironically, for your assignment, you're probably doing something like that, right? You list all the relevant papers, yeah. So you identify all relevant articles or research pieces for this, and then kind of bring them together and discuss how they are relevant. But again, I think as a project manager, you would be probably disappointed with my example there. So this is normally more happening if you have develop R&D projects, or you even go into the explorative prototypes, or you know, where you do kind of proof of concepts projects, where this is more an element that comes out. Yeah. Okay. Be the first one to do. Okay. Let's have a look at so brainstorming we had, incorporating lessons learned strategies we had as well, I guess. Let's talk maybe about knowledge maps. We haven't had those yet. What is a knowledge map?
Basically, how to transfer knowledge from probably one part of the organization to another, or one team to another. Could be on different levels, but yeah, how knowledge transfers basically within the organization.
Yeah, that goes in the right direction. So knowledge maps is actually, I think I have an example straight after this. So it's normally a hierarchy of systems, so normally related to people, to functions, and well, so the knowledge map is normally what you use to map it into a project or endeavor or an initiative that you're planning to do, and that kind of presets, you know, the people you want to recruit, what support functions you need, and so on. Yeah. Yeah. Lynn, did you want to add to that, or?
No. I just thought about, yeah, just put in a simple way. It could be mapping who know what in an organization.
Yeah. Who knows what, and then as well, kind of objects or archives, you know, lessons learned or something like that as well. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. So I guess benchmarking, knowledge. Oh, performing a knowledge audit. This is painful, and we won't do this in this unit. The map we will actually do, but what is a knowledge audit? What do you think? Is this like a Viva or presentation where I kind of ask you a lot of questions? Yeah, or let's ask broader. What is an audit? No one? Okay, let's make it harder. So if no one is answering on audit, then I think I should make it hard. What's the difference between evaluation, audit, and review? Yeah, sorry, Rashi.
Sorry, I was saying, is it about like how and where the knowledge is used? Maybe.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
in the
So you,
business process or something. Like in the process, maybe.
yeah. So it's normally goal oriented or kind of project oriented. So if, for example, it's normally done if you have a contract, yeah, and there's a concern about your capability, but that is already the negative example. So the positive is normally if you are looking to go for a project, you're looking like, okay, this is the vision of the project, and then you're auditing maybe your teams if you have the right knowledge to actually do this, if there are previous cases. And this is, you're normally looking if you have still the right people on board. So again, to give you a terrible example of one of my research projects, where we have there one cluster that claims they are lean, and then we went like, okay, who is certified in lean? And so there are actually certification and qualifications, and then we could kind of see very quickly how in their kind of organization there are pockets of lean, and then there were gaps of lean. And then when we asked like, okay, how are you working together, we actually saw that they don't communicate the right communication, or process and tools were not used or not even considered in terms of how it bridges. So that could be one way of looking at it. Yeah, but audit is normally assess and check, and then give feedback. Yeah, so it's kind of a stem. Review would be kind of encourage, like, hey, have a look at those tools. There's something missing here, yeah. And then evaluation is what is evaluation?
I guess you would undertake an evaluation in an audit. So that's part of auditing.
Yeah.
I think
So
the evaluation, sorry.
No, go ahead, Rashi. Yeah.
I think the evaluation would be required to maybe to maintain that information, like how are you storing it or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, so that can be first of all, Lynn was right. It can be part of the audit. It's often used as an auditing tool, the evaluation, and it was literally the example that I had. Yeah, so for example, in Lean, yeah, you can show work in progress with a wonderful Kanban, yeah, or you can just communicate it in other ways, but the information needs to be there. And Rashi, this is right. So we would ask, what is your database? How you're sharing this? Yeah, and then, okay, there's the Kanban. That is what they're using, you know, to show what work is going on. It may be a task list, yeah, that is shared with everyone, where everybody can see what tasks there are. Then this would be there too. Yeah, so and that is where it's important then to kind of have a look. But universities you normally use when you don't have the proper processes and hope that the academics find the connections. It's a little bit better than auditing companies, because they really want to see, as you're saying, Rashi, the right process there, the right documents, the right templates, and so on. And then, you know, the meetings that follow to follow up, then they're normally quite happy. Yeah, very good. Okay, now, okay, I will leave it with this benchmarking as well, usage of rewards and storytelling. We pick this later. And the other list we kind of cover as well later. So particularly the broker that comes later, and as well the social stuff and collaboration we had already. Okay, I was promising you kind of to do the spin back. So here is kind of how the NASA kind of breaks this down. So they see kind of knowledge management again from the PMO as a strategic matter. So they don't just do what knowledge goes in, but they govern as well. So this is a knowledge leakage problem. Yeah, so they rather create another organization that kind of works on that problem to fit it in a modular fashion, rather than, you know, putting everybody in the same building and everybody understands how it works. So they are actually hard or concrete problems. That is a nuclear bomb scenario. Yeah, so do you want everybody to understand how to build one? Yeah, so it's a big question. So traditionally, if you look at projects like the Manhattan Project, you can see as well there were actually a lot of divisions planned to make this more difficult and harder to figure out. And there's even a whole campaign around misinforming, yeah, which is probably counterintuitive, but probably quite important. Yeah. But yeah, okay, so to talk you through it, so you have the strategy or the vision, the intent or mission at the front end. Then you have the kind of services and processes. So this is community support, knowledge share facilitations, which is kind of a, well, my previous slide was kind of the knowledge fair. Yeah. Then change interaction, change integrations or matrices. What does new successful behavior look like? So this is again, you know, a traditional criteria setting that you can kind of use, or key performance indicators to kind of show what a good performance would look like, or what an idealized performance look like. Then content certification and publishing as well can be another element. Yeah, but here it depends again, do you as a project manager read all the publications before? Yeah, so you guys are of course amazing, yeah, because you have as well committed to education. So I guess we would expect this, or be careful if you go to the companies on my academic board, they expect that from you, that you read the publications. Yeah, but is that really true for all? That is always a question, right? So then you have the information architecture and assets, and that can be metadata, knowledge map for structured, unstructured knowledge, and then as well tacit, explicit knowledge. So, and we had that, right? So tacit knowledge, this is the knowers who was involved, right? Explicit knowledge, that was what Archus said, like, okay, where are the plans, where are the maps, where are the drawings, and where are the reports, or where are our plans, yeah, that were used. And then you have as well knowledge maps as maybe as well unstructured knowledge, right? So this is maybe very contextual bits like repository of emails that were used to kind of come to a decision point. Yeah, well, it can be many things. Yeah. So and they play as well a central part, and then kind of how it's put together. So this is acknowledgement, technical platforms, intranets, portals. So how do you share content, document management, who has access, how do you collaborate, social media, taxonomy tools, technical operations, and there are actually a lot more. So that was just a list again of examples. And that is what they are working through. So when they kind of have initiatives that they make available, they kind of consider that before what pieces are actually essential for that particular initiative, and then deploy it accordingly. Yeah. Okay. Now you have seen a simple typology, yeah, for strategic assets, how that can be implemented, just in terms of broad categories. Where are we time-wise? Okay, yeah, 1 o'clock. Let's, oh yeah, that was again kind of the knowledge value chain to kind of link it together for our support function. So this is as well in the permanent organization where you kind of should bring it all together and iterate your knowledge base if you run it as a central system. But okay, let's before we start that, let's have our lunch break, because I have a little bit initial fun activity, and then a group activity that goes a little bit deeper. So before we do this, let's take a breather and break. Already 12:59. Shall we do 50 minutes? Is that good? Or do you want an hour? What is better? Negotiating here already on. Oh, 1 hour. Okay. Okay. We do the hour. I know on day one I cut you already down to 45 minutes. So let's meet 2 o'clock. Yeah. Is that okay?
Please put into breakout or just have a breakout room for this thing.
Yeah, sure. I open it up again. So one is, oh, okay, you're still set up. Okay, all good.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, Cloris, team 3. Oh, actually, I said
Yes, how? Oh, yes, coming. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, the others left already.